Hello and welcome back everyone. What I'd like to do today is I'd like to take us all through what I term consciousness levels, if you will, our state of awareness and how we live our lives. And what we've basically done is we've made it possible to take a look at where we are in our journey without judgment, without any feelings of regret or whatever. The information that we're going to share with you is simply based on facts from history, from humanity, and we look at it this way, that there are 4, maybe 5 basic levels of consciousness. Now, those levels of consciousness are, if you will, the lower levels of animal consciousness, and I'll go into those in a moment. But then we have, if you will, animal consciousness, and then we have ego consciousness. The next level is conscious consciousness, and I'm going to type this in the bottom of the screen and maybe in the comments box so that you can go back and take a look at these consciousness levels. And the final one, once we're basically functioning from a consciousness level, you're making choices continually, consciously aware of your choices and the results of your choices and the potential outcomes of your choices. And the next level after that, of course, is what we term God consciousness. And then basically you've mastered the lessons that you came here to learn. You're making choices of love, you're making choices from the heart, and so on and so forth. But let's go back to the beginning for a moment, because we started off here with a lower animal consciousness. And if we look throughout history, there have certainly been certain factions that have chosen to be in, if you will, what we call the lower animal consciousness. And why? Well, you see, in the animal consciousness, what we tend to find is that an animal will kill or fight to, if you will, protect its territory. It will kill to feed itself. But these are all based on instinct, and they don't kill or fight otherwise. Or perhaps for a mate, to be the leader of a troop or a group or whatever. And from this consciousness, it's basically based on instinct. Now, if you look at our history, and this is why we called it lower than animal consciousness, a great many factions have been told, go forth and multiply. Now, the leaders of these groups, basically what they've done is they have sent their flock, if you will, to go forth and multiply, to have as many children as possible. And of course they had a goal in having put out that kind of statement, because they wanted to build massive armies. And of course the people that did go forth and multiply, basically they were in, if you will, a lesser than animal consciousness, because they were simply following a flock, a leader. They weren't making conscious choices from themselves, based normally on fear. Now, that's happening again in our history right now. We go back maybe 3 or 4 or 5 centuries. There was a certain faction that did that, and look at our history. You can see all of the campaigns, right throughout our human history that have done this. And it's happening again. It's as if humanity just hasn't wanted to learn, or they've just switched off their minds, their choices. And as you look into the world now, it really is happening again. And of course these people are not asking, why should we be doing that? They're, if you will, making choices to actually indeed go out and kill another human being, because they don't believe as they believe. And they're being told to do that. And they, of course, some groups, some factions are indeed already doing that. This is where terrorism comes from. Now, once you're able to move out of that consciousness and you realize that you're being led wrongfully, and I put that between, Well, you saw it. And of course, once you start doing that, then perhaps you, for a little while, move into instinct consciousness of the animal consciousness. And then, of course, you move into ego consciousness. And from the ego consciousness, I've made other videos about the ego and what it is and what it does. So, by all means, go and watch those, because it certainly gives you an idea of what our ego is and what it does. But in ego consciousness, basically what's happening is you're still allowing yourself to be led. But this time you're allowing yourself to be led by a consciousness of, if you will, let's see, what would be a good description for that? Yeah. Your ego is a survival, it's a survival mechanism. It's a survival tool, and has been, from when we were in the caves. We had the ego because we had to fight or flight, or, to protect ourselves. And of course, still in that consciousness level, you're still basically reacting and acting from that fight or flight, or, fear-based consciousness. And to put it in certain words that is really easy to understand, and this has certainly been a great help for myself and my own journey, when I realized anything at all that wasn't based on love, any of my choices, any of my words or exchanges with others that weren't love, then that was my ego. And my ego either wanted to control or to manipulate or to fight or flight, or all of those things that we've been talking about. And the most of humanity right now are still in that ego-based consciousness, and it is a destructive mechanism. But the beautiful thing about this as well is, as we go through these changes towards the year 2012, we're seeing that many, many, many more people, and that really makes our hearts sing, are moving into what we call conscious consciousness. They are aware of what the ego does. They are aware of the destructive nature of the ego. They're aware also that it is there to sabotage them, because the ego is not wanting to relinquish control over you and your journey. I would rather actually have you die, return to soul. I know that's a strong statement and a hard pill for some of you to swallow, but it is a simple fact. Once you start to study what the ego is and does, you'll find that I am speaking the truth here. But again, we were talking about moving into conscious consciousness. This basically is our main tool to, well, one of my favorite statements, and that is awareness. Awareness is the beginning of the healing journey. And basically what we're doing is, by becoming aware of our choices, our thoughts, our ego, love, we are healing ourselves. We are bringing ourselves back into consciousness, back into collective consciousness, which takes us on to the God consciousness. And in this level of God consciousness, you really are creating from the heart, creating from love, creating in the importance of all beings on our planet. And this is where we're headed, folks. And we can see it happening. Thank goodness we can see it happening all around us. Take a look at this. And, just be aware of your surroundings. Just be aware of how people are acting, reacting, living their lives. And it's important also to remember to remain in that state of love, to not judge them. In fact, actually, it's a beautiful thing if you can actually just expand your heart to its maximum potential, expand your fields of light and your energy, and just send them love. Okay, folks, that was it on the 4 or 5 levels of consciousness awareness.